Every injury of Rhea Ripley's WWE career explained. Rhea Ripley recently suffered an injury that has once again put her on the shelf for an extended period of time. On television, her latest injury, she fractured her right orbital socket, was attributed to the NXT parking lot beatdown from Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. However, she reportedly suffered the exact injury a week before during a segment following a legitimate headbutt. This was among the many injuries Rhea has suffered over the years in WWE. Some were less significant, while others kept her out of the ring for months. Rhea Ripley suffered a wrist injury from wrestling. Wore a brace to keep it safe kind of injury. Rhea Ripley injured her wrist. When did she get injured? Early 2024, around February, according to the interview with Ariel Helwani. How did this injury happen? Rhea said that just wrestling regularly caused the injury. Around WrestleMania season this year, Rhea Ripley showed up on Ariel Helwani's MMA Hour podcast. When asked about the brace on her wrist, Ripley said that it was due to an injury. This had been a lingering issue for her for a while now, and to protect the injury from worsening, Ripley was wearing a brace. WrestleMania was just days away, and neither Rhea nor WWE could afford her being unable to compete at the biggest wrestling show of the year, but it wasn't like Ripley couldn't use her hands or anything. She was wrestling just fine days before live events, but the brace was just there to protect her wrist. Rhea Ripley's match against Toni Storm led to an ear injury. Suffered a similar injury before in NXT. Kind of injury. Ear trauma and skin disfigurement. When did she get injured? November 2020. How did this injury happen? Rhea Ripley suffered the injury during her match against Toni Storm on NXT. Rhea Ripley has had several brutal matches in the past few years. One of them was her NXT title match against Io Sky on an episode of NXT in November 2020. There was a ton of hype around this match, and both women delivered. The match was brutal, and it led to the doctor having to perform a skin procedure on Ripley's ear because it suffered contusions and abrasions due to 5 earrings getting ripped off. A month later, Ripley faced Toni Storm on NXT, and once again, her ears took some damage. According to the NXT injury report, there was ear trauma as well as skin disfigurement. Rhea Ripley's shoulder injury forced her to relinquish her women's championship belt. Her reign ended at 380 days. Kind of injury. Shoulder injury. When did she get injured? April 8, 2024. How did this injury happen? Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan were brawling backstage on Monday Night Raw when Ripley injured her shoulder. Just days after WrestleMania 40, Rhea Ripley got injured. This was a freak incident, which happened during a brawl against Liv Morgan where Ripley went shoulder first on the wall. This caused the injury in her AC joint, which led to her giving up her women's championship. She passed on having surgery, recovered quickly in just 3 months, and returned in July. Although there were reports that Ripley wouldn't work at SummerSlam, she faced Liv Morgan in a championship match, but failed to defeat her. Rhea Ripley suffered a brain injury during a Monday Night Raw episode. Her injury also required some dental work afterward. Kind of injury. Brain and teeth injury. When did she get injured? June 6, 2022. How did this injury happen? During a fatal 4-way on Raw in June 2022, Rhea hit her knee directly on her head, which caused some damage to her teeth as well as her brain. Brain injuries are usually the worst kinds of injuries to exist. You can't see them, sometimes don't know how bad it is, and it might leave you with some permanent issues with your body. Lots of wrestlers have talked about how concussions still affect their day-to-day lives, for instance. And because these injuries are often not visible to the outside world, fans might think they're not as serious. This one wrestling fan said something similar on Instagram in 2022, and Ripley responded to them saying her injury affects her brain and teeth. How did this injury happen in the first place? During a match with Alexa Bliss, Doudrop, and Liv Morgan, Ripley hurt herself after a DDT from Morgan. Ripley's leg touched the rope, and the impact caused her knee to collide with her head. Rhea Ripley injured her orbital bone in October 2024. Second freak injury of Rhea Ripley this year. Kind of injury. Fractured orbital bone. When did she get injured? October 21, 2024. How did this injury happen? On Raw, Rhea Ripley had a segment with Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez where she headbutted Morgan, which caused the injury. Rhea's most recent injury was a fractured orbital bone. It happened when she headbutted Morgan on the October 21st edition of Raw, and WWE wrote a segment to write her off from television. According to Dave Meltzer, she's not going to return soon. She's currently feuding with Liv Morgan, and it's very likely that once Ripley returns from her injury, she's going to get her revenge from the women's champion.